Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. Welcome back to Her Side of the Story, where we share real experiences from women who discovered that sometimes the strongest revenge is quiet dignity. Today's story comes from Bertha Brown, a 69-year-old grandmother who realized that when your own children expect you to raise theirs while they vacation, the best answer is to pack your own bags and sail away. Before we dive into Bertha's unforgettable journey of sacrifice, expectation, and reclaiming her peace, remember that every story we share here represents the strength of women who refuse to stay broken. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every day we bring you stories of women who turn their deepest pain into their greatest power. Now let's step into Bertha's world, where love, duty, and self-respect finally meet in ways her family never expected. "It'll just be 5 days," Christine said, flipping open that little planner she carries everywhere. Her pen was already moving across the page like she was running a meeting. She wasn't looking at me. She never does when she's decided something. "School drop-off is at 8 sharp. Pick up at 3 sagfour. Don't forget Colton's allergy medicine in the evenings. Their lunches need to be packed each night. You'll probably want to go to the store. The fridge is pretty empty." She kept writing, not even pausing. Byron, my son, sat across from me at my kitchen table in Mobile, Alabama. He was tapping on his phone like he was too busy to notice what was being said. He didn't correct her. He never does. Christine flipped to the next page. "Oh, and soccer practice is Thursday for the twins. They'll need rides. We'll be back Sunday night, so just make sure homework is done before we get in." I sat with my hands wrapped around my glass of water, cool against my palms. She was still talking, listing, planning, assigning. She didn't even ask if I was free. She didn't wonder if I had plans. She finished with a smile. "We booked a last-minute anniversary cruise, just us. We leave Monday." It wasn't a request. It wasn't even framed as a favor. The expectation hung in the air like it was already decided. I took a sip of water, set the glass back on the coaster, and looked straight at her. Not with the polite smile I'd trained myself to use for years, but with the kind of smile that comes when you know something no one else at the table expects. "Perfect," I said. "I'll be leaving for my own cruise that week. You and your family can call her Mom." Christine's pen froze mid-stroke. Byron finally looked up from his phone, wide-eyed, like I'd spoken a foreign language. "I'm sorry, what?" Christine asked, her voice sharp, as though I'd skipped my line in a script she thought I knew by heart. I spoke slowly, evenly. "I'll be gone from June 10th through June 17th, so you and your family can handle things however you like." The room went quiet, not angry quiet, not even hurt, just shocked, like a dish shattering on the floor. Christine blinked at me, waiting for me to soften, to laugh it off, to say I was joking. But I wasn't. I stood, gathered the plates from the table, and carried them into the sink. Neither of them followed me. I rinsed the dishes, dried my hands, and hung the towel back on the hook. Christine still hadn't spoken. Byron looked like he wanted to, but the words didn't come. The difference this time wasn't just in what I said. It was in the fact that I meant it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. When my first grandbaby was born, I said yes to everything. I wanted to. I was 65 then, still driving at night, still strong on my feet. I kept a pack and play in the guest room and a basket of board books by the recliner. On Friday evenings, I'd bake slice and bake cookies and let little hands press the dough flat. We'd read the same story 3 times, and I'd never rush it. When the baby fell asleep on my chest, I'd sit still and listen to that small breath and think, this is what life is for. Those early years were simple. A Saturday morning here, an afternoon there. I'd pick up milk and bananas and bring my own casserole so Christine didn't have to cook when she came to get the baby. Byron would lift the car seat into the back of my sedan and kiss my cheek, grateful in that new dad way that makes your heart swell. I felt useful. I felt included. Then life sped up. They moved to a bigger place across town. Another baby came. Then one more. Schedules got busy. Work changed. Money felt tight on their end. The ask stretched. "Could you watch them for a few hours while we run to the store?" Turned into, "We've got an all-day thing on Saturday." That slid into, "The sitter canceled." "Can you keep them overnight?" I kept saying, yes. It felt like love to keep saying yes. Somewhere in there, the way they asked changed too. It wasn't, "Mama, would you mind?" anymore. It was a text at 4:12 p.m. "We'll drop them off Friday night. Thanks, Mom." No question mark. No check on my calendar. The drop-off time crept later, 10 p.m. Then, after 11, a tired child in pajamas, another half asleep, a third still buzzing from a birthday party cupcake. I'd stand at the door in my robe and tell myself this was just a season. Costs shifted to me in small ways at first. A gallon of milk here, a box of cereal, then it was 3 lunch kits, juice boxes, allergy-free snacks because Colton can't have tree nuts. I kept a little envelope of receipts, thinking maybe I'd add them up and show Byron, not for payback, just so he'd know. I never did. Gas for school pickups came out of my pocket. Field trip money when permission slips appeared at the bottom of backpacks. $10 for the book fair, because saying no is hard when someone's face lights up over a paperback about dogs. I learned the school car line rules and which teacher waved the kids across the crosswalk. I knew when the twins needed blue jerseys and when the coach wanted orange slices. I kept Benadryl in the pantry because spring made noses run and eyes itch. I kept Tylenol because someone always had a little fever after a rainy day. When they traveled, I learned their routine by heart. Breakfast fast, toast and scrambled eggs, shoes by the door, backpacks by the couch. One child always forgot the homework folder. One always lost a shoe. I kept an extra pair by my hall closet, one size up for when feet grew and no one noticed yet. On the days they were gone, the house filled with noise, then quieted in a rush at 8 p.m., then burst back awake at 6 a.m. I'd drift off late because the laundry buzzer went off, or a cough started down the hall, or someone remembered a poster due. Tomorrow. I'd lay out poster board and markers and spell words slowly so little hands could copy. I told myself, this is what grandmothers do. I told myself I was lucky to be close. The first time I felt it shift from helping to being used was during small spring break. They asked for 2 days. They stayed 5. On the 3rd evening, I pushed a cart through the grocery store with 3 kids squabbling over which cereal box had the better prize. My shoulders ached. A woman my age smiled at me from the freezer section and said, "You're brave." I laughed and said, "It's just for a couple more days." I knew even as I said it that I was the only one counting. By summer, last-minute emergencies arrived like weather. Our flight changed. The movers were late. The reservation wouldn't let us check in until 4. I'd keep the kids an extra half day, then a full day. I made lunches, then dinners, then breakfast again. I kept medicine logs because the pediatrician asked for times and doses. I knew which child gagged on liquid antibiotics and which one would only take chewables. I knew which shampoo didn't sting eyes. I knew everything, and it wore on me in ways I couldn't name out loud. The pictures online told a different story. Christine posted poolside with a glass held up to the sun. Byron had his arm around her. Both of them tanned and smiling. Captions with hearts and anchors and words like, "much needed." I hit the little heart because that's what you do. Then I turned back to a sink full of cups and a counter sprinkled with cracker crumbs and circled, back to the washing machine because soccer shorts don't wash themselves. There were sweet parts in the middle, always the twins building a fort out of couch cushions and asking me to crawl inside just to sit in the dark with them for 3 minutes. Colton handed me a crooked picture of us holding hands under a giant sun. I saved every picture. I taped some to the fridge until the magnet couldn't hold anymore. I'm not hard. I'm soft as bread where those kids are concerned. That softness kept me saying yes, long after my niece asked me to slow down. One winter, Christine dropped the kids at 6 in the morning because she and Byron had early flights. Colton had a cough the night before, she said, but the fever was gone. By 10, his forehead burned. I called the pediatrician. They could see us at 1. I buckled everyone in, drove across town, and waited in a crowded room with cartoons blaring and tired mothers bouncing babies on their hips. I paid the copay with my card because the receptionist needed it right then. I texted Byron from the pharmacy line and said, "I keep the receipt." He said, "Thank you," with a thumbs-up emoji. When we got home, the twins were hungry. The dog needed out. and the dishwasher blinked with an error I didn't know how to clear. I stood in the kitchen and thought, I am too old to juggle this many balls. Family said, you need to set boundaries. Friends said, say no sometimes. I nodded, and then said yes again because a car seat was already in my driveway, or a text had already come through that said, we're almost there. Saying no in the moment felt like telling the children no, and I didn't want that. So I took the hit myself. I told myself, love absorbs the hit. Last spring, I kept them for 6 straight days. It wasn't planned that way at first. It stretched, then stretched again. The twins had a school project about the solar system. We cut circles from colored paper, taped them to strings, and hung the planets in order from the ceiling fan. Colton had a stomach bug on day 4. I sat on the bathroom floor, rubbed his back, and whispered, you're all right, until it passed. I changed sheets in the night. I didn't sleep much. When Byron and Christine came home, they were sunburned and cheerful. They hugged the kids, hugged me, and said, you're the best. Couldn't do it without you. Then they loaded the car and drove home. I rinsed the bathroom floor and started another load of laundry. If you looked at my checkbook last year, you'd see where the money went. Groceries more weeks than not. Extra school supplies in August. New sneakers when a toe poked through because I couldn't bear to send a child to school like that. And gas that climbed when prices climbed. I cut my own corners where I could. I skipped a dentist appointment and told myself I'd go next month. I stretched medicine bottles to the last pill before calling the pharmacy. The envelope of receipts in my drawer got thicker. I still didn't add them up. Some Sundays after the kids went home, I'd sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold. The house would be quiet in a loud way, the way it gets after noise sits heavy all weekend. I'd look at the crayons left without caps and the soccer, shin guards under the chair, and think, this is a young woman's job. Then I'd get up, put everything away, and remind myself I was lucky I could help. But inside, something kept tugging. It wasn't me wanting to live wild or anything big. It was small. It was me wanting to read a book without listening for a cough. It was me wanting to buy myself fresh sheets without counting quarters. It was me wanting to say I can't this time and not be argued with. The last straw didn't snap, it frayed. Christine's text got shorter. Byron's got lighter. The thanks got lighter. The assumptions got heavier. I noticed they didn't pack enough socks because they knew I'd do a load. I noticed they stopped leaving cash on the counter for pizza because I'd cook. I noticed when they posted from the beach and tagged each other in the resort and left me out. Even in the caption, it wasn't mean. It was easy. I had let easy set in. People my age talk about knees and doctors, and who fell last week, and who moved to be near the kids. We don't talk about how hard it is to be needed all the time and not seen at all. We don't say out loud that sometimes we want to be a guest in our own life. We don't say, I am tired, because tired sounds like weak. And we were taught not to be weak. I am not weak. I raised Byron. I buried my mother. I paid off a house. I kept the lights on, the yard cut, and the church pledges paid. I can watch 3 kids and keep them safe for a week. I've proved it. The question that sat in me by the end wasn't, can I? It was, should I keep doing it because I always have? That's how helping slid into being used. Not with one big shove, but with 1,000 little steps I took myself. With every yes that should have been maybe next week. With every don't worry about it, when I should have said, please bring groceries. With every mile I put on my car, while they put miles on their vacation card. I made a path with my own feet. And then one Tuesday evening at my kitchen table, I stepped off it. The last stretch came during spring break. They dropped the kids off on a Sunday night with bags half-zipped and instructions mumbled at the door. I remember looking down into Colton's backpack and finding only 2 shirts and 1 pair of pants for 6 days. No medicine bottles, no note for the school, no cash for lunches. Christine waved it off with, oh, you know what they need, Mom. You always do. Then they backed out of the driveway like they were late for a flight. That week was long. The first morning, I found the twins arguing over the last pack of waffles in my freezer. I made oatmeal instead, and they complained but ate it. At noon, Colton spilled orange juice across my kitchen floor. I mopped it up, then went back to folding clothes they'd already dirtied. That became the rhythm: cook, clean, wipe up, break up fights, start again. By Tuesday, Colton had a stomachache. He curled up on the couch and said his belly hurt. I didn't have children's medicine in the house, so I drove to the store, dragging the twins along because I couldn't leave them. I stood in line with one whining about candy and another asking if we could go home. I swiped my own card, put the medicine in a paper bag, and prayed it worked. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A picture from Christine, her legs stretched out by a hotel pool, a drink with an umbrella balanced on the armrest. Caption: "Finally relaxing." Later, Byron sent a selfie from a buffet table, his plate stacked high with shrimp. The kids huddled around my phone, asking where their parents were. I smiled and said, "They'll be back soon," even though my throat felt tight. By Wednesday night, I hadn't slept more than a couple of hours at a stretch. Someone always needed water, another blanket, or a light left on. My back ached from lifting laundry baskets. The dishwasher groaned with its third load of the day. I sank into my recliner for 10 minutes, only to jump up when I heard the dog barking because the twins had led him outside without a leash. On Thursday, they fought over the remote and ended up knocking a lamp to the floor. It shattered, and Colton cried because he thought I was angry. I wasn't angry. I was bone-tired. I swept the pieces and told them to play outside. Then I sat on the porch steps and rubbed my temples while the sun beat down. Friday came and I told myself the end was near. I pushed through, made peanut butter sandwiches, washed yet another round of socks, and reminded the twins 3 times to brush their teeth. That evening, Christine texted again, a picture of her at a spa with a green mask on her face. The message said, "Best anniversary ever." No mention of the kids. No check-in to ask how things were going. When Saturday night arrived, the children were restless and cranky. Homework packets untouched, laundry baskets piled high, leftovers stacked in my fridge. I looked at the clock more times than I can count, waiting for the sound of a car pulling into the drive. They finally showed up Sunday afternoon, sunburned, smiling, laughing like they'd been away for a month. Byron clapped me on the shoulder. "You're the best, Mom. We couldn't do this without you." Christine hugged me quickly, said she'd Venmo me a little something later, and herded the kids toward the car. They didn't hand me gas money. They didn't ask if I was tired. They didn't even peek into the kitchen to see the dishes drying in the rack or the piles of clean clothes stacked on the table. The twins waved from the back seat, and then the car was gone. I closed the door behind them and leaned on it. My hands ached from scrubbing. My knees throbbed from the trips up and down the stairs. I shuffled to the kitchen table, sat down, and stared at the pile of receipts I'd shoved in a drawer. I thought about the gallons of milk, the boxes of cereal, the doctor's visit, the hours of sleep I'd lost. That's when it hit me. This didn't feel like love. It felt like work. Work I never signed up for. Work no one paid me for. Work that drained the best of me while they toasted each other on a beach in Cancun. And sitting there with the hum of the refrigerator in the background and the smell of bleach still on my hands, I thought if I keep letting this happen, it will never stop. While I sat up sick with the kids, Christine sent me pictures of spa days and poolside drinks. They were resting while I was breaking. If that doesn't make you shake your head, I don't know what will. Click subscribe if you believe grandmothers deserve better. And if you don't, I expect to see your reason in the comments. That night after they left, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning above me, my body too tired to move, but my mind racing. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. If I didn't change something, this cycle would never end. The next morning, I pulled out an old spiral notebook from the drawer. I wrote 3 words across the top of the first page: what I've given. The list came quickly. Nights of babysitting that turned into weeks. Groceries that filled little bellies while my own budget shrank. Gas for school runs across town. Checks for field trips, lunch accounts, dentist co-pays, school clothes, always with the words, "Just this once, Mom." But it was never once. My energy, my health, my peace of mind. By the time I put the pen down, the page was full. I flipped to another and kept going. I realized I wasn't just writing numbers or chores. I was writing pieces of myself that I had given away, hoping it would be enough for them to see me, not just use me. When I leaned back and read the words, it stung. Not because I didn't love my grandchildren. I do, but because it was all one-sided. I wasn't a grandmother to them anymore. I was free labor, a safety net they never thanked. The truth sat heavy, but it also gave me a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. They didn't really want me. They wanted what I could provide. I closed the notebook and walked over to my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then I typed, "Senior cruises leaving from New Orleans." Dozens of results popped up. I scrolled past the short weekend ones and looked for something longer. One caught my eye, a 7-day cruise through the Gulf of Mexico with stops in Cozumel and Key West. Departure date June 10th. Return June 17th. The exact week Byron and Christine had already planned their trip. I sat staring at the screen for a long moment. The description talked about evening shows, island excursions, buffet dining, and quiet mornings on deck. I pictured myself there, not rushing, not cleaning, not babysitting, just being. I clicked through the photos. Blue water stretching out to the horizon, bright chairs lined up by the pool, a small stateroom with a porthole window looking out over the sea. It felt like it was waiting for me. My stomach twisted. I hadn't spent money on myself in years. Not like this. I thought about the bills, the groceries, the grandkids' shoes. For a moment, I almost closed the screen. Then I stopped. I thought about that list in my notebook, the sleepless nights, the endless laundry, the bills I quietly paid. For once, I wasn't going to put myself last. I pulled out my credit card, entered the numbers, and pressed Book Now. The confirmation page loaded. My heart raced and I felt nervous, almost guilty. But under all that, there was something stronger. Relief. I printed the receipt and tucked it into the notebook beside the list I had written. This time, the money went to something for me. Not a field trip, not a grocery run, not an unpaid babysitting marathon. Just me. I closed the computer and sat quietly at the kitchen table. The house was still. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading what was coming. I was looking forward to it. This time, while Byron and Christine boarded their cruise, I'd be boarding mine, and I wouldn't feel the slightest bit guilty. I didn't breathe a word of my plan to Byron or Christine. I knew if I did, there'd be excuses, guilt trips, or some last-minute push to make me change my mind. This time, I didn't need their approval. I just needed my own. A few days before their trip, I pulled out a plain white card from my desk drawer. In my neatest handwriting, I wrote, "This home will be unoccupied from June 10th to June 17th. Wishing you peace wherever you gather." No long explanations. No guilt, no arguments left open. Just the truth. I folded it, slipped a piece of tape on the back, and walked it to the front door. I pressed it firmly against the wood, right at eye. Level. Anyone who came looking would see it before they even reached for the knob. Inside, I moved through the room slowly, but not in the old rush I was used to. Usually, the week before the kids came, I'd scrub every corner, stock the fridge, and lay out blankets and extra pillows. Not this time. I left the shelves bare. No snacks waiting on the counter. No folded towels stacked high in the bathroom. No toys pulled out from the closet. I packed for myself for the first time in years. A small suitcase sat on my bed. Into it went 2 summer dresses, a pair of sandals, a sun hat, and a light sweater for evenings on deck. I added my toiletries, 2 paperback books, and a bottle of sunscreen. That was all I needed, not an ounce more. When I zipped the suitcase closed, it felt final. I didn't have to think about sippy cups, spare pajamas, or extra lunch bags. Just my own things. Before I left, I walked through the house one last time. I looked at the living room, the same room where kids had spilled juice, built forts, and left toys scattered underfoot. It was quiet now. I ran my hand along the back of the couch and thought, this time the house rests too. I turned off the lights, locked the doors, and carried my suitcase to the car. The drive to New Orleans was steady and calm. Traffic flowed. The sun was bright, and for once I wasn't hurrying home to meet someone else's schedule. As I pulled into the port, I saw the cruise ship rising tall against the sky. People bustled with luggage, smiling and excited. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't standing on the outside looking in. I was one of them. I parked, rolled my suitcase behind me, and walked toward the boarding gate with calm confidence. This trip wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. As I stepped onto the cruise ship, the air felt different. People were laughing, rolling their bags, pointing toward the decks. I handed over my ticket, walked across the ramp, and felt the floor change beneath my feet. I wasn't immobile anymore. I was on my own trip. The steward showed me to my stateroom. It was small, but the porthole window opened up to blue water stretching as far as I could see. I set my suitcase on the bed, pulled back the curtain, and just stood there breathing it in. Not long after, my phone buzzed. Byron's name lit up first. The message read, "Mom, we're here. Did you forget?" I sat on the edge of the bed and smiled a little. No, I hadn't forgotten. I had planned every bit of it. A few minutes later, another text came. This time from Christine. "This isn't funny. We're at the door." I pictured them standing there with 3 restless kids, suitcases on the porch, and my note taped to the front door. I had written it clear enough for anyone to understand. My home was closed that week. The buzzing didn't stop. A third message flashed. "This is selfish. We can't cancel now." That word selfish jumped off the screen. After years of babysitting, after groceries, school runs, and sleepless nights, one no was enough for them to slap that label on me. I stood, walked to the balcony, and slid the door open. The air was warm, the water below steady. I set my phone face down on the little table and leaned on the railing. The ship horn sounded low and deep as we began to move. I could imagine the scene back at my house. Byron pacing, Christine angry, the kids asking questions they didn't have answers for. The car still packed, the week they thought they had arranged now unraveling right in front of them. But for once, that chaos wasn't mine to manage. I let the messages sit. I let the phone buzz until it stopped. The ship pulled away from the dock, the city growing smaller in the distance, and I finally felt the weight lift. For the first time in a long time, I let them sit in the discomfort instead of rushing to fix it. They called me selfish as they stood outside my locked door. Selfish after years of free babysitting, free groceries, free labor. If you think I was right to finally choose myself, subscribe right now. And if you don't, then type out your excuse in the comments, because I'd love to hear why my no bothers you more than all my silent yes ever did. A couple of days into my trip, my neighbor Mrs. Fields gave me a call. She's the type who notices everything from her front porch. Her voice carried that mix of concern and curiosity she's always had. "Bertha, you should have seen it," she said. "They all showed up at your house with bags, coolers, the whole works. Kids fussing, standing around looking confused. Christine was on her phone calling everybody she knew. Byron kept pacing up and down the driveway like he didn't know which way was up. I could picture it as she described it, the 3 kids restless, asking when Grandma was going to open the door. Christine probably red in the face, trying to explain to her family that their plans had just fallen apart. Byron caught between her frustration and the kids' needs. Mrs. Fields went on. After about an hour of back and forth, they packed everything back into the car. I heard Christine on the phone with her mother, and before long they headed over there. Lord knows how they fit everybody into that little condo of hers. That part made me smile. I'd been to Christine's mother's place before. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and barely enough space for her, let alone 3 kids and a pair of frazzled parents. I didn't need to guess how uncomfortable it must have been. Air mattresses on the floor, kids whining, adults stepping on each other's toes. And while all that chaos played out, I was on the ship deck early in the morning, sipping hot coffee and watching the sun climb over the water. There was no rush, no noise, no one asking me for anything, just the sound of waves and the chatter of other travelers excited about the day's port stop. By mid-morning, I joined a round of bingo with a few folks my age. We laughed over silly cards and swapped stories about where we traveled from. At lunch, I sat with a couple from Georgia who'd been cruising for years. We talked about gardens, grandchildren, and church back home. For the first time in ages, I felt like Bertha of the person again, not Bertha of the babysitter. That evening, I dressed in one of the summer dresses I packed and joined a group at dinner. I tried shrimp I didn't have to peel, bread I didn't have to slice, and dessert I didn't have to wash dishes after. Strangers at the table turned into quick friends, and conversation flowed easily without a single mention of chores or homework. When I walked back to my cabin that night, the thought hit me clear as day. I didn't miss a thing back home. Not the grocery lists, not the piles of laundry, not the texts asking for one more favor. For the first time in years, I felt peace. And it tasted better than anything I'd known in a long, long time. When the ship pulled back into New Orleans, I felt lighter than when I had left. A week of no lists, no chores, and no little feet running through my house gave me more rest than I'd had in years. Driving home, I didn't dread walking through my front door. I was ready. The house was quiet when I unlocked the door. Nothing out of place, no dishes stacked, no backpacks dropped on the floor. I set my suitcase down and just stood in the entryway, letting the calm settle in. It felt like my home again, not a second daycare. The phone rang later that evening. Byron's name flashed across the screen. I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but I picked up. "Mom," he said, his voice tight. "You really left us hanging. That wasn't like you." I took a deep breath before answering. It was written clear as day on the note. "Byron, I wasn't available." Silence on the other end. Then he muttered something about the kids being disappointed and ended the call. 2 days later, Christine texted me. "We'll chalk this up to a mood. Next time, let us know ahead of time if you're overwhelmed." I stared at the message. My decision, my boundary reduced to a mood, like it was just a passing feeling that would blow over. I typed back, "Not a mood, a decision. I'm tired of being taken for granted." This time, I didn't wait for her reply. That week, I started clearing out the things that had been taking up space in my house for years. The spare bedding stacked for sleepovers, the old high chairs that no one had sat in for a long time, the boxes of toys I bought to keep the kids busy while their parents traveled. I packed it all up and drove it to the donation center. Watching them unload the bags from my trunk, I felt something shift. I wasn't just clearing clutter. I was reclaiming my home. When I walked back into the house later that afternoon, the rooms looked open, cleaner, and calmer. For the first time in years, the space wasn't arranged around everyone else's needs. It was arranged for me. I sat in my chair with a fresh cup of tea, looked around the quiet living room, and thought, this is how it should be. The summer turned into fall, and I noticed how different life felt once I drew that line. I wasn't weighed down anymore. My days were mine again. I signed up for water aerobics at the community center. At first, I worried I'd feel out of place, but I didn't. The women there were friendly, and we laughed more than we exercised. It gave me a reason to get out of the house, and I found myself looking forward to those mornings. I joined a book club at the library. We didn't always agree on the stories, but that was the fun of it. I enjoyed listening, talking, and simply being part of a group where I wasn't responsible for anyone else's needs. I could just be Bertha. At home, I painted my spare room a soft green, the shade I had always liked but never chosen because Christine once said it was too dull. For the first time, I picked something just because it pleased me. When I sat in that room now, it felt calm and warm. It felt like it belonged to me. By winter, I booked another trip without hesitation. Not a cruise this time, but a quiet cabin by a lake. A week of reading, walking, and resting. I didn't ask anyone's opinion. I didn't check anyone's schedule. I saw the listing, liked it, and pressed book. That was enough. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Byron. "So you'll babysit next time, right?" I didn't stall. I didn't explain. I simply typed back, "No, but I hope you find a plan that works." Then I set the phone down and went back to my tea. No guilt, no second guessing. And that's when I realized something simple. Once you stop performing, you start living. Now, I want to ask you, the one listening to my story, have you ever been called selfish for finally saying no? Have you ever been expected to do something just because you always did it? What would change in your life if you finally put yourself first? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And if this story spoke to you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need the reminder, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Because choosing yourself is not selfish, it's living.